What's up, YouTube? Now, y'all know how I feel about my young black girls, okay? Asha Degree disappeared in the early morning hours of February the 14th, 2000 from her home in Shelby, North Carolina. Just 9 years old at the time, she packed a small bag and left on foot in the middle of the night during a storm, never to be seen again. Even though there were eyewitnesses that seen her walking along Highway 18, and later discoveries of her belongings buried miles away, no arrests have ever been made. Now, 25 years later, her body still hasn't been found, and her disappearance remains one of the most haunting and mysterious child cases in America. Shout out to Crime Junkies podcast. These two journalists, they did some footwork and let us know about some stuff that you would never see on the news. Let's get into the clips.
All of the properties in Cleveland County were owned by a couple named Roy and Connie Dedman. Roy and Connie have 3 daughters, Lizzie, Sarah, and Anna Lee. The daughters are all adults now, but back in February 2000 when Asha disappeared, they were teenagers. So Lizzie's the oldest, she was 16, Sarah was 15, and Anna Lee was 13. And the property in Charlotte that was searched in 2024 was actually associated with the youngest, Anna Lee. And the warrants state that investigators were looking for physical evidence specifically related to Asha's disappearance. And this included a lot of things like photos, kids' clothing. They seized the Dedmans' electronic devices like notebooks, business records, their cell phones. And they were also allowed to take any and all records for a man named Russell Bradley Underhill, who was a tenant at one of the family's homes in 2000. So the reason that any of these folks came on investigators' radar in 2024 was because they found with modern DNA testing the presence of Russell's DNA and a hair that was an identical genetic match to the Dedmans' youngest daughter, Anna Lee. And that was on Asha's shirt and from the trash bag that her book bag was found in.
So that's probably all the stuff that they found in 2016 that they we sent off to FBI. We found something,
did new tests,
but couldn't do anything with it probably. Right. So the important thing being, there would be no reason for their daughter's DNA or hair or their tenant's DNA to be anywhere near or on her stuff unless they had some kind of interaction with her.
Yeah, exactly. And in 2000, the Dedmans' house was about 6 minutes away from where Asha was last seen walking on Highway 18 by those witnesses. Now, when authorities interviewed Sarah, the middle daughter, in September 2024, she told them that back when she was a teenager, she drove a dark green AMC Rambler that her dad had given to her in 1999. And the search warrants actually include a photo of that exact car, which everyone can see. It's a black and white photo, so it's hard to kind of tell there's no color. And it's actually pretty similar looking to the 2 car images that the FBI released in 2016, the Lincoln and the Thunderbird or whatever, that they believe Asha was seen being put into or pulled into. And if you look kind of closely, it even has some front end damage that's pretty noticeable.
Saw that. This is a 1964 AMC Rambler, so pretty old, which is what we keep coming back to. And according to the search warrants, it was registered to Roy at an address that was searched by investigators. The home used to be occupied by his daughter, Sarah. Sarah's the middle daughter. But she had since moved, and the guy who lives there tells investigators that in the 5 years or so that he has been renting from Roy, he says there are these 3 rooms in the house that are all padlocked, and he's been told not to go in them.
Well, around the same time that authorities also speaking with this tenant or whatever, they speak with a woman named Laura Dedman, who I think is related to Roy. I mean, obviously they have the same last name, but and she tells them that several years before this, she saw Roy digging a hole at that property that was not just a small hole for a fence post or something. This hole was chest deep.
And this is after what year? After 2000?
No, this is after 2016, this is fairly recently up until 2024. So just a couple years before 2024.
Oh, whoa. Okay. So you guys are caught up in the car. That happens in September 2024. So there was a flurry of information at the end of 2024 where Asha's case was, you guys were DMing us about it. We were kind of holding to do an update because we thought something bigger was going to happen. It took a minute. We weren't wrong. So that search wraps up, and authorities obviously have the Rambler in their possession. They also have fresh samples of Roy, Connie, and Anna Lee's DNA. It's also at this point that investigators come right out and say that they no longer think Aisha is just a missing person. They now actually believe that she was a victim of a homicide and that her body has been concealed this whole time. But nowhere on any of the Deadman's properties did investigators find a body or human remains, nothing skeletal. All these searches took place over the course of 2 days and nothing definitively connected to Aisha. There were, as far as I know, no more clothing or personal belongings. Nothing surfaced.
Yeah, and I think right after this, an attorney representing Roy and his family, he makes some public statements about how that's a really important point. He's like, hey, this family has been named as suspects, but they deny any and all involvement in what happened to Asha Degree.
Right. According to coverage by WBTV, the family's attorney, this guy named David Teddy, he holds this press conference and he asks the community not to spread rumors, not to jump to any conclusions about Roy or Connie or their daughters. He states that the Deadman family denies any involvement in the case and also kind of alludes to Russell Underhill perhaps being the link between the Deadmans, their properties, and whatever happened to Aisha, which is awfully convenient because according to the search warrants and additional news coverage, Russell died long ago, all the way back in 2004. So it's not like he's around anymore to say anything or defend himself.
Right. It's kind of one of those things are we really going to blame the dead guy who died just a couple years after she disappeared, who can no longer be questioned or investigated?
The Cleveland County Sheriff's Office executes 3 more search warrants for the Deadman family, specifically to investigate them for felony obstruction of justice. And it is these documents that I was the 2024 search warrants were great, but these were the ones we had to get our hands on if we were going to do this update episode, because what these warrants reveal are emails, text messages, cloud data, and phone calls between Roy, his daughters, and one of their ex-husbands. And some of these communications are head-turning, to say the very least.
Yeah, I think that's just one way of describing it. And so looking through the warrants, because I went through all of them page by page, and they are specifically for the contents of 3 Apple iPhones. One that belongs to Lizzie, another that belongs to Roy, and another that belongs to Sarah.
Right. And just to remind, so for our listeners, Lizzie is Roy's oldest daughter, Sarah is the middle, Anna Lee would have been the youngest. So according to the search warrants, when authorities executed those searches in September at the family members' homes and properties, Lizzie spent a lot of time on her phone while all of that was going on. Her sisters, Sarah and Anna Lee, called her, then Roy called her, and then Lizzie called Roy. And so the search warrants contain pages and pages of texts. Bedelia, you pulled some of the messages that seemed to really stand out to investigators. I think we need to kind of go through these because this is I think the crux of everything.
Yeah, I did. And so there's a couple exchanges, but there is a text exchange between Anna Lee and Lizzie on September 10th, 2024, where Anna Lee says, "I am so sorry I just said all that. I am just in complete shock." And then later that same day, Sarah texted Lizzie, "They think it's our shirt. It's not her shirt. Her mom said it wasn't hers. I don't remember that shirt. I'm scared, though. Dad is probably going to be a huge suspect."
And I assume they mean that band T-shirt that they found in her backpack. They
yes,
don't say
that's
that,
what I have to assume they're
okay.
referring to, because that's all we kind of know at this point. So the next day, September 11th, 2024, Lizzie's ex-husband texted her that he was sorry, her family was going through the situation. And then a few hours after that, Anna Lee texted Lizzie.
Youngest texting oldest.
Yeah. "Lizzie, you don't need to be talking to anyone. I'm at the lawyer's office now. They advise we should all not talk to them without representation." Now, Lizzie then texted her ex-husband, "This is going to get nothing but worse. I'm talking to my doctor at 5 to get something for my nerves. I'm just so worried. So worried. I mean, it's a nightmare that's going to keep getting worse. I can see nothing good happening anytime soon, and I'm an optimist." Yeah, it's clear what they're talking about, yeah.
So it's the next few messages that I think are the most interesting. So this comes the day after the ones you just read, and this is from Sarah, the middle daughter, to Lizzie, the oldest. Sarah says, "I just talked to David Teddy," who is the family lawyer. "I just talked to David Teddy. The theory is I did it. accident, covered it up. And Lizzie later texts her ex-husband again and says, I feel so horrible. So horrible. I don't know what to do. I caused this. And keep in mind, like between a lot of these texts, there are phone calls back and forth between Sarah, Lizzie, Lizzie's ex-husband, Anna Lee, Roy. Like they're all playing phone tag. And after all of this, it seems like everyone clams up and they aren't talking to investigators anymore. So after September 28th, there's another string of messages between Sarah and Lizzie. And it starts with Lizzie saying, I'm just so anxious about like what's going on behind the scenes. Like, what are they doing now? What's going to happen to me since I wouldn't talk to them? To which Sarah replies, I know, girl, I am a disaster. I think if they come at you again, you just go and be compliant. That's what I'm planning on doing. And then Lizzie writes back, I think so too, honestly. I mean, I want to do what Dad says, but damn. To which Sarah replies with, and maybe we should have let you do what you originally wanted to do. But we don't know what that is. Now, on February 10th, authorities ask Lizzie to take a polygraph, which she does. But according to what investigators put in their search warrants, the results of that test show signs of deception. And that same day, investigators also visit Sarah and ask her for another interview, but this time she declines. So at this point, it's really Roy, Sarah, and Lizzie that law enforcement feels pretty sure have obstructed or at least at a minimum interfered with the investigation into Aisha's disappearance and likely death. Like reading between the lines a little based off of some of the FBI and other law enforcement officials' like previous statements, to me, it's feeling more and more like maybe what happened to Aisha was some sort of accident. Maybe it was a hit and run. But it seems like then they're thinking it was allegedly covered up by Roy or Connie, possibly also the daughters. Question mark?
Yeah, like that question of, again, why did she leave her house if she left willingly? Like was she lured? Like, I don't know. There's so many questions about her exiting her home, like her safe place, right? And going on this road. The only thing that comes to mind for me is that we know Highway 18 was going towards Shelby. It was in the direction of her school. She took the bus on that
had her
road.
Book bag.
Yeah, like she had her book bag. The book that's in her bag, the Dr. Seuss book, is actually a library book from her school. So, you know, that's in the bag. It's like, is she going just like on her own little like adventure to have her own time and then is going to be back before they have to go to school? Like there's just so many question marks around that for sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything put forward that she was like meeting up with someone, or again, we've got no connection between her and this family. So if they're involved in some way, an accident seems to be what like police are posing, or at least in the text messages, what they think police are posing based on what their lawyer is saying.
And I think that's why, too, they are trying so hard to connect the routes between these families' homes, the healthcare facilities. Like, that's a really, really critical thing for law enforcement, is figuring out, like, could they have been on that road? When? Why? All those sorts of things.
Did an accident happen?
Yeah.
And the other big bombshell from these search warrants, it wasn't just the text messages. There is someone who has a story that kind of corroborates like this idea that it could be an accident and that these sisters were involved. So this testimony is from a local guy named Thad Mellentine, who authorities interviewed on September 18th of 2024. And it's only in the most recent search warrants, though, that we were made aware of this interview. So we didn't have them in the September ones. We just got them in February. But according to the documents, Thad tells the sheriff's office that in the mid-2000s, he was in his 20s at the time and hung out with the Deadman sisters at bars and like house parties, like on a pretty regular basis. And at one particular house party, after Asha Degree vanished, he saw Lizzie, the oldest, sobbing, like bawling her eyes out while seemingly pretty drunk. And she's crying, and he hears her make several statements admitting to killing Asha. But when Sarah, her sister, overhears her sister say this, she immediately grabs Lizzie's head and tells her to, quote, shut the f up. Now, that reaction from Sarah kind of caught Thad off guard because he always knew Sarah to be very calm, a very nice person. So this story is wild. I don't know why we're learning the story. Like, where was Thad in 2000? And to make sure he wasn't lying, investigators had him take a polygraph, and he passed with flying colors.
I never heard about this story in my life until 2025. So if you just like me and you just finding out about it not too long ago, then I know that y'all are interested just like I am. Stay tuned for part 2 because I have an interview that I'm going to dissect and we're going to get more into it and we're going to talk about what happened to Asha Degree.